I appreciate you. That's one of the best introductions I've ever had.
Could you tell us about the Latino Community Foundation and, more importantly, why you work there?
Of course. So, hi everyone. Again, the Latino Community Foundation is on a mission to unleash the power of Latinos in California. And the reason why I work there is because I am committed to my community. I forgot to mention that I am also the daughter of Marco Gonzales and of Sylvia Vargas. A couple of months ago, when I started doing these sort of speaking engagements, I promised that I would introduce them in the beginning because they are the reason why I'm able to stand in front of you today. I graduated from UC Berkeley, go Bears, and, and about 3 or 4 months before I graduated college, there was a big Black Lives Matter protest that completely shook me to my core. I majored in political economy and French with a minor in global poverty and practice with the full intention of pursuing international development work. What that protest taught me was that there was a lot of work that I needed to do here in my community and in California. And so I sought out an organization that would fill that need and that I would be able to bring my talents and my skills to. And that was the Latino Community Foundation. We operate on our 3 pillars, which are inspire, empower, and transform. Transform, investing directly into Latino-led organizations. We've talked about this number before. Less than 1.1% of philanthropic dollars go to Latino-led organizations, and that is not okay, especially in a state like California, where we have 15 million Latinos, and where 54% of school-aged children are Latinos. Empower, building political power for Latinos. At the end of the day, if we can give out all this money and we can do all this work, but if we are not changing what our political representation looks like, and if it does not reflect the majority of the population in a state or in a country, we are doing a disservice to everybody. And lastly, what I'm here to talk about today, which is our philanthropic arm, the Latino Giving Circle Network. And really quickly, and this, I'm just going to use this as a device. Can everybody just do this really quickly with me right here? Now do this. Little circle, little circle, little circle. So what we just did there was movement. And I share that because as one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Lin-Manuel Miranda famously wrote, "This is not a moment, it is a movement." And that is what the Latino Giving Circle Network is. It is a movement of Latino philanthropists that are truly dedicated to the work and to the community that we serve.
Speaking of Latino philanthropy and the Latino Giving Circle Network, tell us a little more. Tell us why it matters and what is the possibility for the future of Latino philanthropy. You're very embedded and deeply committed to that. I love to hear your perspective and for you to share it with everybody.
Sure. I mean, the way I think about it, especially in a state like California, California is the state of innovation. I was at a conference about 2 weeks ago, and it was an interesting conference. I'd never been to one like this before. It was about like spiritual and civic engagement leaders, and one of the initial pastors, what he said, which really spoke to me, was California has the highest vibrations. And what I took away from that, California having the highest vibrations in the United States, is that if we get it right in California, it's going to go right everywhere. And when I think about that with Latino philanthropy and with getting folks involved in this movement, if we get it right in a state that has 15 million Latinos, this has a huge impact in the rest of this country. Given what we are facing today, we have to unite to our resources and our talents to be investing back into the Latino community because we are investing, again, in Latino-led nonprofits. These are trusted organizations in the community. When it comes to things like voter engagement or gang prevention or teenage pregnancy prevention, they're going to trust people that they can relate to. These are the organizations that we need to be funding. And who better than Latino philanthropists? We have always been givers. We give back in remittances. We give back to the church. When your tia needs money to buy something, the family comes together because that is who we are. It's at the heart of our community. But we've never necessarily traditionally thought of ourselves as philanthropists. Growing up, the word philanthropist to me equated somebody like Bill Gates, old white man with a lot of money. And I never thought like my parents were philanthropists because I didn't think about it in that way. But they are. We are. I am a philanthropist. And that's really what we're trying to do, is to change the narrative within philanthropy so that every individual sees themselves as a philanthropist and sees themselves as somebody who can change what's going on in this country.
This is very important. I've been doing a project with the Latino Community Foundation, interviewing Giving Circle members. I spoke with Hector Mujica yesterday, and I've done some focus groups and group chats, and I ask everybody, did you think of yourself as a philanthropist before you joined the Giving Circle network? And the answer is no, I didn't. And then they say, and now I do. And now I understand that I don't need to be a multimillionaire to think of myself as a philanthropist and to act accordingly, to increase my engagement with local Latino organizations and truly know them, who they are, what they're doing, and making sure that they know that the funding they are receiving comes from us, comes from them. We are them and they are us, and we function as one. And this didn't happen really in this manner, in this formal manner, before the Latino Community Foundation took the leadership in creating the biggest Giving Circle network in the US. So that is a major accomplishment.
And, Mara, since you pointed that out, I would like to kind of call out a couple other people, because you already mentioned Hector. So Hector is part of our Latinos in Tech Giving Circle. We have Lilian Peña right here, who's part of our Peninsula Latinx Giving Circle. Arnoldo Avalos, who I believe stepped out, in addition to being a board member, he's also part of our East Bay Men's Latino Giving Circle. And of course, our very own Mara Perez, who's part of the founding SF Latina Giving Circle that started back in 2012. And this is an amazing, amazing group of women who were like, they wanted to give beyond the dollar. They were, I think in that first year, you all gave out around $10,000, is that right?
Yes.
And what has that become? We now have 18 giving circles across California, almost 500 members, and this year, in December, we're going to be celebrating that since 2012, the Latino Giving Circle Network has given out $1 million to Latino-led nonprofits. Wow, that's amazing.
So, since we're talking about philanthropy and the Giving Circle Network, which is a model that we can think about, not everybody has to join the Latino Community Foundation's Giving Circle Network, but rather take ideas for how we might be able to promote, foster, and grow Latino philanthropy. So what have you learned through your engagement by connecting with so many members of the Giving Circle, by being part of it, and more importantly, how far and how can we take this network so that it continues to grow beyond even California? What is the vision of the foundation, and what is your own vision for how we can grow this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what I've learned from it is really, it's all about community. I feel so safe and great in this environment because I honestly feel that I am among familia. And it's not just with folks in our Giving Circle network. It's also folks like Omar Carrera from the Canal Alliance. It's the community partners. It's those relationships that we've built. It's also about, I've learned a lot about the power of connecting because yes, when you're in a giving circle, I see how different folks from different companies, different industries, different age groups are able to connect and learn from one another. That in and of itself is powerful. But then what happens when we go beyond that? And you have somebody in the network that connects really closely with a community partner, folks that are on the ground, that are on the front lines of the things that they are so passionate about. And that's really where change happens. And what I've also learned is that most folks in the Giving Circle are wanting to give beyond the dollar, right? I can tell you from Latinos in Tech Giving Circle, for example, when we did our Yo Voy a Votar Y Tu campaign, I went alone with two members of Latinos in Tech, Chris Torres and Eliana Murillo. We went to the border in San Diego to a big concert that Univision was putting on, and we registered people to vote with the support of Mi Familia Vota. And we were there, and there was about, 10,000 people, and we're just hustling, getting people to register to vote. We have folks like Lillian, Lily over here, who's constantly opening doors for a lot of our community partners, for us as a foundation to make sure that the stories and the voice of our communities are being elevated and actually seen and heard. We have folks that are going out to register people to vote in Nevada with our community partners because they recognize how important this is. That's really the power that I have seen. It's not that people don't care. It's about making that initial connection, because once it's there, it's a movement that keeps going.
Right. And speaking of connections, when I was speaking with Hector yesterday on the phone, and we were talking about Latino Philanthropy and the Latino Community Foundation, and I asked him, has the Latino Community Foundation helped change the narrative and the understanding of large corporations about what Latino nonprofits do? And he said, it is through interactions with people from the Latino Community Foundation over a long period of time that Google began to pay more attention to what Latino nonprofits are doing. Over time, also, the Latino Community Foundation and Google partnered, and it is through this partnership and funding from Google, I think it's $1 million, that, oh, it's an alert. It's the presidential alert. Trump says, give to Latino causes.
Just a heads up, everyone, you should be receiving a FEMA test.
Yes, we just got it.
Awesome.
And so Google invested $1 million in the Latino Community Foundation to establish a Latino nonprofit accelerator, the first in the nation, equipping and building the capacity of Latino nonprofits so that they can be stronger at fundraising, at networking, at developing programs, etc. So, given that, what connection do you see between a funding from Google to support capacity building for Latino nonprofits through the accelerator and Latino prosperity?
Sure. I mean, I will say LCF is in the work of change, not charity, right? And I think that was a great example. Like, Google gave us our first $1 million to Latino Nonprofit Accelerator. I just came back from that event last week, and it was absolutely, for me, like, life-changing to see after a year and a half approximately how much these organizations had grown after they got the necessary support that they needed. Because again, these are trusted institutions that are doing phenomenal work, but sometimes you just need extra help with learning how to ask for money. That's not culturally, like, right? My mom was like, you don't talk about money, right? So how do we train our organizations to do that? And also, how do we train them with marketing? You can be doing the most amazing work and having the biggest impact, but if nobody knows what you're doing, how can we continue to expand the reach? I think in terms of Latino prosperity, this is incremental again, because these grassroots nonprofits are the ones that are meeting the most needed families in our communities. And that's really where it begins to change. That's where they learn to get inspired by the executive directors. Because again, Latino-led nonprofits, led by a Latino or Latina, they see like, wow, I can run an organization like that someday. And then they get inspired, and then they change the world.
Exactly, and part of the effort is to think about how we change the narrative so that Latinos historically have been thought of as recipients of charity. It's really a hierarchical order that puts the givers here and Latinos there. They receive because they need. Not so. Some do, of course, but we can also turn the wheels and turn the narrative. They give because they receive because they need, but they can also give to help others. And I think this is the engine of how we change this narrative about understanding the Latino community through what Lilian is doing, through what Hector has allowed us to make growth by support from Google, what Abigail is doing from the Aspen Institute in Washington, D.C., and so many others. It's changing the narrative. And why does that matter in your perspective, Amer, changing that narrative about Latinos?
That's a really, so, you know, it can get really personal, right, about changing the narrative. I grew up in the Central Valley. I grew up in Stockton, California. And my high school was majority Latino, majority Black, and I was always super proud to be Peruvian. Like, I probably introduced him like, hi, I'm Amber, Peruvian. That was probably like my formal introduction to everything and everyone. It wasn't until I got really close with my Rotary International group, my Rotary Club in Stockton. A lot of amazing folks, but I had a lot of prejudice, I guess, experiences with a couple of the adult members that were very difficult because of assumptions they had on who I was as a young Latina woman growing up in Stockton, California, which was very difficult for somebody who is very proud to be Latina, very proud to be a woman. And I learned a lot in my last 2 years of high school about how others perceived me. Mm-hmm. And in college, I learned how to own my narrative and how to own my culture and to own my identity and use that as a source to be able to create change and to be able to be a leader in different spaces that were Latino and not Latino, right? And that's why I think it's important to change the narrative, because I want every single person, all 15 million Latinos to feel like that as well, because we are important and we are the ones that are going to be leading in the next couple of years. And if we don't feel like we can share our voice, then that is at the expense of everybody in this state and for everybody in this country. It is imperative for everybody. This is not just a Latino issue.
Amber, as a woman, yes. I'm older than you, and you inspire me, and you give me confidence, and the day I retire or turn my attention to something else, I'm going to be so comfortable because you're there.
Thank you.
So where do you want to get? You're young. You have so much energy. You are a true leader. What are your goals, your professional goals as a Latina leader? Tell us. That's my last question.
Yeah, great question. It's funny because I'm at a transition point right now where I'm starting to think about that. You know what? I will start off with, and I'm proud to say this because I used to not be proud to say this because I felt like it was at the expense of my professional career. But first and foremost, I'm looking forward to becoming a mother because I learned so much from my mother, and she has made me the person that I am today. And I cannot wait to do that with my own children. And beyond that, you know, in fifth grade, I won this oral interpretation contest in Stockton Unified School District. And I came back and my fifth grade teacher said, if you ran for president, I'd vote for you. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I said, well, how did I get there? And he said, he's like, well, you know, most presidents are lawyers. And I said, all right, well, what do they do in college? And he said, well, they major in political science, a lot of them do. So I applied to UC Berkeley with a political science degree. That stuck with me clearly. And I hope to go to law school and get an MBA. I've been thinking about a joint degree for a variety of different reasons. Having worked within the philanthropic sector, I've been thinking about a lot of different things. One of the things is that, you know, we joke around a lot about this, but with like lawyers, for example, they charge you when you sneeze. And it gets like, and I keep thinking about what that looks like for our nonprofits and our community. And I see myself in that space. I also see myself actually going back to working internationally. So I haven't disclosed that yet until now, but I actually do see myself eventually working for the United Nations.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's all keep our eyes on Amber and what she achieves and how far she takes representing the Latino community over time. I am grateful for your presence, your dynamism, your energy, and your kindness. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.